Welcome to Dan Perkins' podcast called What's on My Mind. Always provocative and thought-provoking on many different subjects, here's Dan Perkins.
The longer it takes to pass the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, the more we find out how much of it is not going to COVID-19 relief. We recently found out there is a $100 million set-aside in the appropriations bill to fund a controversial Silicon Valley underground rail project. The project was estimated to cost $4.69 billion in 2018 when it was started. Current estimates have already skyrocketed to $6.9 billion and probably higher, and it's currently scheduled to be completed sometime in 2030. According to Railway Age, the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, allocated $100 million to the BART extension in 2020, after the project got another $125 million in 2019. But the inclusion of further funding for this project in the Coronas bill backed by the Biden administration raises questions about the urgency of what Democrats say is a must-pass priority. Steve Kelly, a spokesperson for the Senate Banking Committee Republicans, said, and I quote, "It doesn't help one person get the vaccine, or it doesn't boost testing capabilities. This is just further proof that congressional Democrats view the reconciliation process as a means to push through their wish list, which includes forcing taxpayers to pay even more for an over-budgeted and delayed construction project in one of the wealthiest regions in the country." Now let's turn to schools and their funding. In the two previous stimulus bills for funding public schools, the Congress passed $31 billion education and relief in the March CARES Act and an additional $82 billion for education relief in the December Consolidated Appropriations Act. That's a total of $113 billion to be spent potentially in less than 1 year. Now, in the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, Biden wants to give the public schools an additional $136 billion. So if it passes, that will bring the total amount to $250 billion for schools. The CARES Act was for $2 trillion, and at the end of the fiscal year, the Congressional Budget Office reports $1.58 trillion has yet to be spent. They said because most of these funds remain to be spent, the CBO anticipates that the bulk of spending of the funds provided in the reconciliation recommendations would occur after 2021. One could ask, why pass another stimulus bill for $1.9 trillion when almost $1.5 trillion is still unspent from the CARES Act, and we don't know how much of the Coronavirus and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act signed into law in December 2020 is still undistributed. Speaking of spending, Senator Tim Scott, the Republican senator from South Carolina, urges Congress to finish distributions of the $900 billion from the December COVID relief bill before passing new stimulus bills. We should also look at the unpaid amount for the CARES Act and spend those amounts before passing new funding laws. What good does it do Americans to support the funding of people in need in America, and then the government at all levels don't spend the money? So we should follow the lead of Steve Kelly. Quote, "If it doesn't help one person to get the vaccine or boost testing capabilities, then don't pass it. If it doesn't put people back to work, then don't pass it. If it doesn't help to save a small business from going out of business, then don't pass it." Do you realize, America, that if we don't fund the hole in the ground in Silicon Valley, we can buy vaccines for 2.5 million Americans? Which do you think would better help the country? I'm Dan Perkins, and that's what's on my mind.